welcome, Allie.
Thank you for
joining us. I see we have some water, not wine, so far this morning, but apparently we have to wait till 7. So I really appreciate you joining us. I wanted to unfairly start with probably one of the most controversial questions and topics, no right answer, because everyone's debating this out there, but really with hype versus now. And we've seen from Pew Research, from Rutgers, that a lot of people, 58% of people, probably even more now, are familiar with ChatGPT, but only 14% of people are using it. We even saw a drop this summer in usage, probably because the kids weren't using it for their essays anymore. But this has led to lots of discussions about, is this hype? Is it too early? Is it too early to really think about generative AI, LLMs in my e-commerce experience? Or is this a competitive differentiator if I take advantage of it now? Would love to get your thoughts starting there.
So there's another set of stats that like McKinsey showed that 79% of people have had some sort of exposure to generative AI. The majority, it's in their personal life, and the majority, it is a one-time use, and then they say, like, sayonara, I'm gonna go figure out what to make for dinner. And so what I think we're like in this middle zone of is turning it from a one-time exposure into real use cases and real value. And the companies that I'm working with or speaking with, it's the ones that are taking advantage of this learning moment, and we probably have maybe a couple months, right, to be in that like crack the nut period. That the people who crack that are going to be the ones that gain the competitive advantage. The question around too early, there are tons of use cases that people are throwing out, and there are fewer that are doable today, doable in a small amount of time, and have value, so I'm happy to share those. But I would just say start with the use cases that have already been done. There's no massive driver to reinvent the wheel. There's this moment where you can upskill and up-level your internal workforce and your employee set and also your customers. But this is like the couple-month window to do that in.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that, obviously we think the moment is now, right now. Yeah. But you talked about the speed of how much this is changing. The moment is now. It feels like when e-commerce first started, we actually had years to kind of figure it out, get it right, take every last click, every last second out of the transaction, whereas now the rate of change is happening much faster. So you mentioned internal operations as well as e-commerce. How do you think that some of these e-commerce companies can think about the internal operations and taking advantage of it now as a differentiator in their business?
So first, completely agree about the rate of change. And Dario, the CEO of Anthropic, one of the biggest AI startups in the world that has been funded over $1 billion. His one big quote was like, the thing that I wish people would know about AI is just how fast things are changing. I started in AI nearly 20 years ago, and even the clip of acceleration is unfathomable to most people in AI. So relying on change, building your whole business around change, that is really setting businesses apart. As far as the internal operations, I think the good news here is that it's not necessarily super hyper-specific to e-commerce. There are plenty of other examples to kind of look to, and so I'll give two. Morgan Stanley uses AI to help. This is an internal-only use case, which I would start internal-only for risk mitigation. But it is internal-only, and they're using it for their own wealth managers to very quickly answer questions so that they, on the front line of customer service and customer support and customer relationships, can have a much higher value conversation and, from a business side, convert faster, convert better, convert to whatever products. So starting internal only and thinking about who is your front line. Maybe it's a customer support team, maybe it's a sales team, but figuring out how can you turn them into like AI augmented humans or superhumans for your company. Second example is Stripe. So again, not necessarily e-commerce, though they're in the kind of shopping space. And they're starting external, but starting small. And they're saying, hey, we're going to have this whole conversational AI interface, but it's only for our technical documentation. It's not for our entire website. You can't, place orders through it. You can't do returns through it. You can't take action through it. There's a litany of other 98% of things that you can't use it for. But they're like, we're going to start with a known, niche, narrow use case. It is for our technical documentation, and it'll help our end users, developers, build a lot faster, get their questions a lot faster, and in turn, again, help their business metrics.
I think those are great examples. I'm curious, as like people in the room who maybe haven't even started or tried to use it, where would you get started?
So starting small and starting internal are going to be my top two things. For ecom specifically, two top spots to start with would be external marketing. So that could be social media captions, that could be ad captions, and that is a very, very easy spot to start with. And the second is product descriptions. Product descriptions do have a layer of accuracy to them. You obviously don't want to give the wrong specs to a product, and so there's going to be a little bit more of a human in the loop. On top of that, outside of these specific use cases, there's this layer that I think a lot of companies forget about, which is like the operationalizing and efficiency parts of it. So let's say you have a marketing team of 20, right? And some folks are going to be really interested in ChatGPT and generative AI, and some are like, I don't even care what this thing is. And so you want to grab the prompts and the work that the really eager folks are doing, reward them for sharing that, create a channel for them to share that on Slack or Microsoft Teams or whatever. And then as they're sharing those prompts, test them as a team and see if the outputs make sense and actually mimic your brand voice. Are you giving it enough examples? Is it really showcasing what your brand is about? And have literally a prompt repository that your whole team can use. I think a lot of folks are just missing this little bit of, don't just take one prompt, do one marketing caption, call it a day. You can reuse them and you can upskill 20 people off of one person's input.
I love that. It makes me think of turning your entire company actually into a marketing machine.
Yeah.
Right? When I was at Walmart, they would definitely instill all of us that you're all merchandisers, you're all marketers, you all need to be thinking like this. And I was a software engineer. So knowing where to start, knowing how to be that person, whereas with ChatGPT, I find myself all the time in there. I want to post on social media, pretend I'm a social media marketer. What would I say right now if I gave you the following pieces? But that could be really powerful if you can train everyone, or turn everyone into a marketing, merchandising machine.
And even, I'll add one little element here. I'll talk to ChatGPT and then, or any of these systems really, Bing, Claude, whatever. And the output that I get back is low quality, it's not what I wanted. And what I found is that in addition to you are an expert social media manager and you know every single thing in the world about social media, if I add bits about my customer persona, so if I'm writing a LinkedIn post and I want to target executives who are between this market size and this market size, who live in this region, that's one helpful piece, the literal featured description of them. What makes the prompt even better is when you give it that human-centered part. You say, they're fearful about the future of AI, or they're really excited, but they don't know how to convert it into action. Or maybe you're an e-commerce company and you're selling wine, right? Maybe you're like, I want to talk to bachelorette parties, and specifically, I want to hit on this idea that it's the party of their lives, whatever. Some sort of psychology insight just, again, takes the prompt from write a post to write a post for this type of person, write a post for this type of person with this insight, and then having that be that shared prompt, again, levels up everyone.
Yeah, I totally agree. So I'd love to shift into this human and machine element. I'm going to quote you for a second, so forgive me, but you said that AI is highly technical, but can be immensely human, and it can actually deepen what it means to be human. And I think that e-commerce is very much tied to human interaction and human moments, whether it is trying to pick up medication for my family, whether it's grocery shopping, or if maybe it's just I need shoes that I think won't allow me to trip on stage. All human emotions, yes. You can do it. Yeah, it worked really well. So very much this human element. what does that mean when you say, AI could deepen what it means to be human? I think we're scared about how technical it can be. And how would you think about that in the world of e-com?
So there's kind of two zones to this. One is that because AI is helping rid us of like low value manual labor, that literally allows us to do more human things. That allows us to be more creative, that allows us to think of reasoning or these emotional stories or actually talk to our customers even more or solve more complex problems. So one is this like automation component to it. I think the other piece, which is where the future of AI is headed, we're not quite there yet, is that AI is going to be value-oriented and goal-oriented. And so Anthropic, that company, has kind of announced this idea of constitutional AI, which is when you will be able to hand a constitution of what your company believes in, right? Are you a super fast mover, or are you kind of like a patient implementer? Are you really data-driven, or are you gut instincts? Like any of those trade-offs that companies make, you'll be able to give a system and say, this is how we function internally. And so having this be a value-driven system and not one ChatGPT, one-size-fits-all situation, that's one. And the second, which I think is huge for e-com, is goal-oriented. So right now, if I go to Nordstrom or any sort of shopping website, I might go to high heels, and there's no button for like comfortable. There's no button for looks awesome on a stage. And I don't even think I succeeded there. But I do think that there's going to be this like goal-oriented layer where I might go in and say, let's say I'm shopping for a couch, which I just did. The way that I wish I could have shopped was through more like unstructured language. I wanted to say, I love like watching AI videos with friends. That is true. I like watching, hosting board game nights. That is true. All these things are true. I don't know why I'm caveating all this. And I want just like, I have a very stressful life, and so I just want to sit back and relax. And those are things that I wish I could have fed into that system. And what we're seeing right now with ChatGPT plugins is sort of the beginning of this, where we get to type in an unstructured search, and it converts it into a structured search. So if you use like the Expedia plugins or any of these, it'll take my paragraph of me talking about the type of vacation I want, and it'll convert it into what places might that be, what dates might that be. I might say I want to go to a warm place in July, and it will search Austin, Texas, or whatever. So having this goal-oriented layer, I think, is where everything's going.
Yeah, that's interesting. I love that you talked about shopping for a couch. Raj just talked about shopping for a couch. His example was,
they're expensive. They're hard decisions.
Yes, and I think he put less than 5K in the query bar. I don't know what kind of couch you were getting. But, his example, similar, you're talking about all these, what am I going to use it for? His example was, I just want it to be warm and inviting is the vibe I'm going for. But the way we've been trained to shop, the way e-commerce really relies on attributes today, right? We have to tag everything. It's very Yahoo-esque back in the day. Everything needs to be tagged. Everything needs to be tagged in a way I can think about it. But you're talking on an emotional level of shopping. You're talking about categories we couldn't even have imagined. So right now, we're really focused on kind of those particular internal use cases. Is the future with generative AI getting us to a place where it is much more conversational and emotional of a shopping experience than we have today?
Yeah, and I think even right now, that kind of chatbot experience is already leveling up that shopping back and forth. I think that there's interesting layers of like building up trust and using this as a moment to help that whole shopping experience. And just on the idea of like, you're manually tagging everything, you're manually organizing everything. We're moving to a world very soon, this is not a multi-year situation, that right now humans go in and we force the categories. And what I think everyone kind of woke up to with ChatGPT is when you have a human predetermine what paths are going to happen, you oversimplify and over-narrow down what that customer journey actually is. And so having a more open-ended experience allows people to actually have closer relationships with your brand. They feel more like they're part of you, right? It's not just this like keyword search. And I honestly think that the last several decades of clicking and searching by categories was this friction, like low friction efficiency play. But because we were so dedicated to optimizing buttons and clicks and reducing friction, that we kind of missed this larger piece. Can I give one funny example here? So ChatGPT, I know I keep using that, but I mean like all these AI systems that are more general. I am a horrible gift giver, and so I went into the system and I was like, I have a friend, she's turning 42, she's obsessed with witches and hiking and yoga, and so I was able to just describe my friend. And I got these ideas for gifts, and I have now used that as my way of buying gifts. And I've gotten more compliments on these gifts that I've given than pre-AI Allie. That's part one. Part two is I was like, wait a second. It's told me the gift, but can it make the gift giving process even better? Like, I think we kind of miss that there's this like theatrical side of e-com and gift giving and bringing people in. And so like I gave a gift card to a friend, but I asked ChatGPT, I was like, make it fun. Like, what is the process of handing this card that makes it better than just this? And they were like, was like, how about you drop in like meme hints, and it wrote the captions for me, and it helped me create the memes. And so for like once a day leading up to, again, handing a gift card, I was able to create this like theatrical, like excitement, and it was so much more fun to hand someone money because there was this whole element of like culture and fun and human interaction around it.
Absolutely. I mean, I think there's a whole experience element to this.
Yeah.
And when we put everything into the attributes and the categories, you're hopping from category to category instead of whether it's a whole gift and help me figure out what the packaging of this gift should be and what tissue paper I should use.
Yes.
But also experience shopping. We've seen everyone dress up to go see the Barbie movie.
Myself included.
Yes, and me as well. And we maybe made my husband wear anything pink as well to it. We've seen people go shopping for their outfits for Taylor Swift all summer, and the friendship bracelets and everything. Yeah. There's this experience element to it that's just not captured today in e-commerce. Yeah. That my hope and dream is that generative AI will help us capture.
Yeah, and I think there was already this like mid-layer, like on Stitch Fix and on a bunch of these websites, I already kind of saw that they were, and Amazon does the same thing. They'll have like event-specific categories. So it'll be like, shop by clothing, t-shirts, whatever, but then it'll also say like, for a summer barbecue. And it'll be a whole series of things packaged for that experience. That is totally, like, you don't need generative AI for that. You can just have a human think through what are the 5 things that people are shopping with us for. But I do think that there's this whole element of like, how can you actually use AI to generate those things? Very quick example here. I work with a startup who has a website where you can use AI to help write marketing copy. And so what they did was they had like a couple sub-products where they're like, now it's going to help you write a LinkedIn post. Now it's going to help you write an Instagram caption. And they, the humans, programmed the 10 that they were like, man, everyone's going to use these 10. And then, again, going to this idea of like using AI in your internal operations, they were like, wait a second. I bet AI would have some pretty darn good ideas. So they fed it the 10. They fed it the type of customer that they had. And AI generated 25 more. And they just posted all 35 on their website. Guess what happened? The top 15 categories were all the AI-generated categories. So using AI, again, like I think it's helpful to have those categories. We've had human-generated categories. Please use AI in that like ideation and brainstorm process. It's low risk. You can have your entire team approve it. You can review it. You can, whatever, all those other layers. But there are so many companies that are becoming AI first and moving AI more upstream into how they are thinking through this and turning their team into this like amazingly creative, super powered team because they're using these systems as part of it.
Absolutely makes sense. If there were any final last words, final pieces of advice you had for these e-commerce executives on the future of generative AI, what would it be?
Find me comfortable heels. I think that seems to be a big takeaway.
Okay, that's a request. Yeah. What else would you like?
I think the biggest piece of advice is that you're probably in this zone of you've tested it a couple times, you've worked on it a little bit internally. The spots that I would start, again, starting small, starting internal only. A lot of companies that I work with are very successful in hosting internal hackathons. This is like a 1 to 3 day setup. You have teams, create diverse teams. Don't just put all the engineers over here and all the designers over here. You want all of those to collaborate. You want to reward your employees for coming up with creative ideas and continue to reward that sharing so that you're going to level up your whole team. And I think if I were to take like 10 steps back, it's really starting from a culture of being more AI first and more AI integrated and using this as a time to start that experimentation so that you're ahead of the curve.
Well, I know everyone is hoping that this conversation could continue for a lot longer. So I just want to actually plug, because I think this is awesome, that Allie just launched an AI for Business course on Monday.
Yes.
So it's brand new.
Yes.
You've got speakers from Amazon joining, or you've got people from
I
Amazon?
have not yet
Amazon
announced the speakers,
Oh.
but one is the founder of
heard
one
it
of
here
the
first.
most used AI products in the world. One of them is a C-suite executive at one of the top AI companies in the world. One of them is a White House advisor, so it's going to be pretty darn epic.
I love it. I can't wait. I've followed so much of your podcast. I think this has been our podcast you've been on. Follow Allie on Instagram, on anything, on Twitter, Allie K. Miller, and thank you so much for being here with us.
Appreciate it.